Hi, Nick.
Hello, Aaron.
Hello, Nick.
Hi, Travis. How are you all today?
Doing very well. This is Finding Neutral.
I was going to say,
If
are
you
you
guys
ready?
didn't know.
Are
Did
you
you guys
ready
know it's
to
Finding Neutral?
find neutral?
I'm in first gear still.
Oh, okay. Well, you better find neutral.
I'm picking reverse.
Today we're going to do some shop talk, and not figuratively, more literally.
But we're not in the shop today.
Yeah, I know. We're doing shop talk inside the living room,
Who plans these things?
right? It's like we don't plan anything at all. Like we just made it up 5 minutes ago.
5, more like 3. During the intro.
So I think the idea that I had for this, and I actually thought of this earlier today.
Oh, did you now?
Yeah, and it's because Nick, you've asked me for my advice on your tools, like what tools you should buy, your shop setup. When you built your shop, we had discussed some things like that would make your shop work easier for you. And
I followed exactly 0 of them.
yeah, sure, you followed 0 of my advice. Okay. But then Travis and I we've discussed a lot. Travis and I have worked together in the past in a shop setting. I would describe myself as a professional
Well, you are a
technician.
professional.
So did it for 15 years with a couple years of schooling before that. I would think Travis, I consider him like semi-professional, because professional means you get paid to do it. And Travis does get paid to do it, although it's on the side. It's not through his actual job. His job is controls engineer.
Yeah, engineering. in
Yeah,
general.
so he does stuff with like CNC machines and everything. And then Nick, I would describe you as hobbyist, which is like, and I've been really impressed by your level of skill and knowledge out in the shop. Whether you're like tackling a car's suspension or doing all the wraps and painting and stuff, like you're better at the wraps and painting than I am. I don't focus on that side of things. I'm more like mechanical repair and modification. But
Oh, I've done some things.
yeah, it's impressive, and so you've just been asking.
You don't even know half of what I've done.
So
He's the artiste of the group.
I would say the focus of this is to try to help folks figure out that they can do it themselves, and to help guide them through what it takes to work out in a shop, to fix your own bike, to do certain tasks, what makes life easier, how to go about buying tools and setting that up. And I'll kind of like let you guys take it on from here. Let's start like this. When did you first start fixing stuff yourself? Like age-ish range and all that good stuff. When did you start, Travis?
When I was a kid, I worked with my dad all the time, so I learned from him most all the skills I have. And
Your dad, memory serves, he was body shop and paint?
Body shop mostly. He did do mechanic repair as well. Like mostly what he did was crash damage repair, basically. He would do insurance jobs, things like that. He ran his own business doing that for a long time. Collision repair, pretty much is what he did. So, like anything that was around repairs related to, like, they got into a crash, they hit a deer, whatever. If there was mechanical repairs involved in doing that, then he, was into that. But he was mostly like the paint, bodywork kind of repair stuff. That was what he was really, really good at. I am not so good at that. I never really learned. There's an artistry hand to doing all of that kind of work, and I am not as much of an artist. But I learned all the mechanics from him, and then kind of been tinkering all my life. I've always taken stuff apart and put stuff back together. It was a big problem when I was a child. I took everything apart that I could get a screwdriver on.
How many things did you not put back together?
Probably most of them when I was younger. When I got older, I was getting better at putting them back together. But that's kind of been my whole life story. It's always been, take it apart, figure out how it works, and then learn something from there. And that has extended into my job and all my hobbies. I always prefer to build or make or do something if I can, mostly because I'm cheap, but also because I feel like I have the skills to be able to do it.
It definitely saves you some money, and financially makes a lot more accessible to you when you don't have to pay a professional. Like when you can do it yourself. Professional costs you thousands of dollars. You can do it yourself for a couple hundred. It's nice when you have that option. Mm-hmm. What about you, Nick? Do you have something similar? Did you start as a kid?
Well, I would say more as a child. It was like the take things apart, put them back together, but nothing too mechanical in nature. Like my dad, he would fix things around the house, but he would never touch a car ever. So I kind of got into the whole concept of working on cars. It was probably 7 or 8 years ago, when I was working for Honda. I think that what happened was I had an Acura at the time, and I just decided that I wanted to change the oil myself because the last time I took it to the shop, they left the key on and ruined the battery. So I was like, well, I know this isn't like that difficult. I should be able to handle this. So I started doing stuff like that. And then I did like a brake job on that car as well. And then it kind of evolved into working on more complicated type activities just because I had my 2005 Saab at the time, and I mean that I did all the engine mounts on that car. And then now it's like I have 4 cars and 3 bikes, and to be honest with you, I don't think I could afford to have all of that if I didn't work on it myself. So, I mean, once you kind of get into the aspect of working on the cars, I feel like you're willing to kind of increase what you're wanting to tackle. So I started with very simple things, and then I really moved on. And then like in the last year got into more of like the body work type activity as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. Your confidence grows, and you become not only more confident, but more adventurous.
Yes.
So like, you accomplish one task, whether it's an oil change, and then you're like, you know what? That wasn't as bad as I thought. So now that I've done an oil change, maybe I can change a spark plug, or I can change an air filter or something like that. And you kind of just keep growing your skill. And, we're going to mix cars in this discussion, even though we're a motorcycle podcast, just because machines are kind of machines. Mechanics is kind of mechanics. It's all kind of similar. And especially since cars and bikes, share a lot of the same technology, whether it's engines and transmissions and whatnots. So it all kind of works the same. But one thing I will say, the difference between bikes and cars when you work on them is you can take all of your half-inch drive tools and set them aside because you don't need them hardly on bikes. Bikes are really dainty, so they don't like a lot of big heavy tools with a lot of torque and
axle nuts.
That's really the only time, like axle nuts. I mean, there's a few certain situations like swing arm pivots that require a half-inch drive, but most of the time you don't want to touch it even with a 3/8. You really want to touch it with a 1/4-inch ratchet. But we're getting like a little ahead here, talking specific tool stuff. But
what was your intro into working on stuff?
God, it's like similar to you. Like I was a kid and I would take stuff apart, and then when I was like 12, I got into radio controlled cars, and this is like in the mid 90s. And back then, radio controlled cars are dorky enough, but like if you wanted to go fast with a radio controlled car, it had to be gas powered back then. Nowadays, it's all these electric powered. They're like Teslas, like they're just super fast with electric power, and they're insane. They're way faster than the gas ones. But back in those days, it was gas only was the only way to go fast. The electric ones were slow. So I wanted a gas one, and I got it, and I had to learn how to do all, there's so much maintenance with the gas one. So I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to rebuild the engines. I had to learn all suspension setups, and I had to learn like, you know, what's trail, what's rake, what's camber, what's caster. There's all these like suspension droop and sag and like all these different setup things that you don't really mess with on a normal car. You mess with it on race cars, but actually RC cars, like they have all that too, and it's all adjustable. So I had to learn how to do that and how to tune on it and everything as a 12-year-old. And that just drove me to really like cars and vehicles in general. And then when I was 16, I got a car, and it was a piece of crap. So I always had to work on it. And then other kids at school heard that I knew how to work on cars, so they would bring me their cars. And then I started charging for it. Like, all right, you want me to put these lowering springs on your Toyota Celica? Sure. And then I would charge him a couple $100, and I would swap on his lowering springs or whatever the job was. And I mostly did it not for making money. That wasn't the point. I would charge him just to cover costs, and so I wasn't getting taken advantage of. But largely I did it just because these people were my friends, and it was fun, and it was cool to hang out with everybody and everything. So I enjoyed doing that. So I decided to go to school for it. And then I went to school when I was 18. Well, I just turned 19, and I went to mechanic school down in North Carolina. Did that for 2 years. And then I moved back up here to Ohio, started working at dealerships and started turning wrenches professionally. And I did that for a solid 15 years. So I've been kind of through the ringer as far as like turning it into a career. And it's a good career path. It's hard work. It has its ups and downs, has its good days and bad days, all that sort of cliche stuff. But what's nice about it that I take away from it is working on cars professionally and just in general, like even if you don't do it professionally, it kind of teaches you how things work. And then you're not afraid to tackle even non-car, non-moto related stuff. Like I've fixed laundry machines, like washing machines and dryers.
Yeah, I put like a heat element in my dryer.
Yeah, you just learn how to do stuff. So you like learn how to figure out things and how to diagnose them. And then you're like, well, crap, instead of paying some guy $500 to come out here and do this, I can just replace a $27 part. So it's convenient. It's just nice having the ability to do that sort of stuff.
It's just nuts and bolts, right?
Yeah, it's just nuts and bolts. We'll figure it out. So that's kind of how my background came about to be. We'll kind of go back to mentioning you set up your shop, and same with Travis. When you first started out, I'm assuming you didn't have like a garage or a shop at the time.
I had I lived in my condo.
Okay.
Had a 2-car garage.
Okay.
Had 2 cars. And I can't remember specifically. I'm thinking really early on. I don't even know if I bought like the traditional blow mold mechanics tool set. I don't even know if I had that. I just had like what I needed to do what job I thought I wanted to do. And then it was like, I got this blow mold DeWalt 96 piece or something like that. You know, you got your 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch drive, your sockets. It has the Allen keys, a few at wrenches, but I really never use those. And with that,
and by blow mold, for anybody watching that doesn't know what the blow mold,
just the plastic case.
It's just a plastic case that they all come in. It'll be like the 233 piece mechanics tool set in a nice plastic carrying case.
Yeah,
that's a blow molded case, and so that's what you mean by that.
Yeah, and I mean, I probably used that exclusively until a year ago. Because honestly, in my opinion, you can do just about anything you need to do with something like that. All of the other tools really just make things easier.
I agree completely. That's a big discussion in like professional mechanic world. Because when you're doing it professionally all day, every day, weeks, months, years on end, you're trying to, one, save time so you can make more money, because time is money in that game. And two, you're also trying to keep from fatiguing yourself. Because let's say you just did a big engine job. Well, guess what? Here's another engine job. You know, I was doing 2-a-day engines at Hyundai for several years. And it just, you develop techniques, you buy certain tools to prevent fatigue. It's not necessarily because those tools are absolute necessities.
Yeah, so like more recently, so I tore down my garage and I built a new garage so that I could fit everything in it, first and foremost. And then also have like a decent space to do the work that I needed to do on everything. So more recently, it was like I got into the whole concept of tool storage. So I got my big toolbox and all that that's almost completely empty because it needs to be filled. But I just kind of view it's like it accumulates as you do things. And another thing that I liked about working on things myself. So like I was talking about fixing the dryer. So like when I wanted to fix the dryer, I had to buy a multimeter. So it was like, well, you know, I can spend $100 on a multimeter, fix my dryer with a $30 part, and then I have the tools that I used for like the rest of my life. So sure, there's a little bit of an investment up front, but if I would have just paid somebody to do that, then they would have come, they would have fixed it, and I wouldn't really have anything going forward.
Yeah, you wouldn't have the knowledge, you wouldn't have the tools, and you would have paid them ultimately a lot more than $130. I guarantee it.
Well, yeah, and like so when I wanted to get into paint last year, it was like, well, I probably could have just bought a brand new gas tank for my Ninja ZX6R for $1,000. But instead of doing that, I probably spent $1,000 on tools and equipment to buy a tank and fix it myself. But now I have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I wanted to do some paint on my scooter, really I was only out the paint cost.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's a good way to look at things, like as an outlook. Like you make the investment, and typically you only make it once. Sometimes you got some consumables that you have to replace or whatever, but overall you make the investment once, and now you can just do that for the rest of time. You know, if that job ever comes again, or if you want to get more and more into that job specifically, you have the tools to be able to do it, which is nice. So that makes everything you do from that point on, the out-of-pocket investment at that specific circumstance is a lot less.
Yeah, and I always, whenever I'm looking at buying tools, of course, there's all the different levels of how good do you want them to be.
Yep.
So I kind of judge it based off of, well, how often do I think I'm going to be using this? And how important is it? And how like mission critical is it in the end? Because sure, like everybody knows Snap-on tools are very high quality, but if I'm only going to be using it once, then what's the point?
And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about tools. But before we get into that, Travis, do you remember when you first kind of, not from being a kid, but like, when you're a younger man and starting to really like work on stuff on your own, like working on cars or bikes or whatever, what was your initial tool investment like?
Well, it was basically zero because I just bummed all my dad's tools. So I didn't really have to invest in a whole lot of tools right off the bat. I did most of my work out of his shop, which was already set up as a mechanics and a paint and booth and stuff. So I did a lot there. He had a really nice setup behind our house that he worked out of. So I got to use all of his tools, which he had good tools. He had Snap-on and Craftsman and things like that. He had a varying level of tool sets for all that. So I always used all of that to do all the work. I built all kinds of goofy things. I did four-wheelers. I did a dune buggy. I did cars, when I started getting cars. I worked on the cars with my dad when he was repairing cars and stuff. So I was always around it. So it was always there in front of me. I mean, I was mowing grass when I was like 10 years old.
Oh
you
yeah,
know, and
me too. It's like
I'd work on
your
the
hands were
lawnmower.
up here, and you were pushing the lawnmower.
Yeah, so my dad had a block made, like a big square block that he made at his work at the time, and he had fashioned it to the brake of the mower, so I could reach the pedal.
Talking about riding.
Oh, this is a riding
Yeah,
mower.
a riding mower, yeah.
Oh, I never had that luxury in my entire life.
Oh, yeah. I rode that mower for years, and then...
Well, you might still need the pedal extender.
I probably do. I mean, I do have to reach for it a little bit. But then I built my own lawnmower so I could mow grass in my own mower while he was riding that one. And it was always a thing. I was always buying and building and selling and buying more.
You are a West Side gypsy, so
That's right.
I get that.
I mean, building in my world, my dad built golf clubs.
So I lived in Westchester in suburban hell, and that's where I grew up. You know, sidewalks and
White privilege.
stupid cookie cutter houses and all that good stuff. But my parents didn't work on anything. They didn't do that. If there were tools around the house, they were extremely simple tools from like Walmart or Kmart or whatever. They were very, low budget tools that were poor quality. So I didn't really have anybody to mentor me or anything like that. So I just kind of, trial and errored it. And I remember when I was 16 years old, and prior to being 16, I didn't have a job, so I didn't really have the power to go buy my own tools. I just had to get whatever I could get. And luckily the RC car kits that I played with came with their own little miniature tools. But when I first started getting into working on cars, I needed some tools. Like it was just, I couldn't get around it. I had to go buy something. So I took my Wendy's paycheck and I rolled over to Smythe Automotive, and I purchased a set of Stanley half-inch drive sockets, shallow 12-point half-inch drive sockets, and a Stanley 18-inch half-inch drive breaker bar. It's the first tools I ever bought. I still have the sockets. I no longer have the breaker bar. I bent the hell out of that thing, but I have the sockets still. They're out my shop right now. I don't ever use them because they're kind of poor quality and got a lot better stuff now. But they were the first things I ever bought, so they're kind of sentimental. And then it just kind of grew from there. I went off to school. I lived in an apartment there. I didn't have a garage. And then I moved back to Ohio, and I moved in with Brandon. And at the time, we didn't have a garage. We didn't build a garage there for a couple of years. So I was just working on stuff outside, if a buddy would call me up and wanted, an exhaust installed on his Integra or whatever it was, usually we'd be doing it in some random apartment complex parking lot. I've done it in Kroger parking lot. Dude, I've set up shop and worked on them anywhere. I didn't care.
I changed batteries in the Costco parking lot all day.
Yeah, the world was my oyster, and I was going to set up shop and do what I needed to do. So I wasn't afraid of that at all. You don't need a garage space. A garage space just makes things nicer. I've worked on them out in the rain, out in the snow, like all of it. I've worked on it, just did what needed done. So I think when a lot of folks think about things like working on their own bike, they get a little scared because they may not have the space to do it. And that's not always necessary. I will say it's best to get permission to use the space. That's a nice thing to do. Because I've done things where I didn't have the permission and I've been asked to leave. But
and you're like, I can't leave.
Well, I'm like, it's kind of in a million pieces right now, so sorry. So that's not a good thing to do. But get permission from whoever owns the parking lot, and usually it's pretty cool. As long as you can do the job within one day, they're pretty lenient on it. If you don't need to leave the car there or the bike there, you're usually pretty good.
Now this is a tangent, but You always can tell what type of neighborhood you're in based off of what type of activities you're seeing in the local AutoZone parking lot. Like, you know, when there's the Ford Taurus on blocks with an engine halfway out of it, that's where I want to be.
Well, I'll tell you something else. If you're ever a professional mechanic, take your shirt off before you leave work.
Oh, because you'll get asked.
Oh my God. Like I'd be on lunch. I took my shirt off for lunch break. Because if I went out to I'd be sitting at a restaurant by myself because I just wanted, you know, some peace and quiet by myself. I'd be sitting there at a table at whatever, Burger King or whatever. And I would get harassed. People would come up and be like, "Hey, you're a mechanic."
No, they would say, "Hey, Aaron," because your shirt had your name
Well,
on it.
They usually didn't see my name because they'd usually come up from behind and they'd be like, "Hey, you're a mechanic." That was usually the line I'd always get. And I'd be like, Christ, like I'm trying to eat my lunch. I only got 20 more minutes of lunch break. Like I don't have time to screw with you. Like I got to eat my lunch and get back to work.
Got to finish your Kurger bang.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I learned that pretty quick. Like don't leave your shirt on. Don't let people know unless you are prepared to help them with their problem. I mean, it sounds mean, but when you're doing it all day, every day, and you just don't have the time to mess with it, it's just you know, you got to shut it down.
That was the shirt that I wore when I worked at Honda because everybody wore the mechanics shirts. And it had your little name embroidered on the one side.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, whenever we went out, we're like, okay, take the shirts off.
Absolutely. You got to get those off.
And
'cause
if you
you'll get
don't,
harassed.
then like someone will be like, "Oh, hi, Nick. How are you?" And you're like, "Who the fuck are you?" And how do you know my name? Oh, wait, it's plastered on my shirt. But it was nice because whenever I wanted to work on my car, I would just wear my work clothes because then I could just throw it in the Cintas bin and dispose of it afterwards.
Well, I always like the Cintas bin too because I never had to pay for shop towels. I'd bring like a bag of shop towels home, use them at home, and then I'd bag them back up, bring them back into work, and throw them in the dirties for Cintas to clean
Get another bag.
and get another bag.
But now the clothes would come back and it would be like starched to oblivion. It
Well,
wouldn't bend.
They don't clean them in normal stuff. They like clean them in like kerosene and stuff to get all the
I'm
oil out of
sure.
them. And a lot of times you'll see like don't ever wipe your face with a Cintas rag because a lot of the rags spend time at a machine shop and they'll have like a bunch of you know like machinings like
Yeah,
little
chips.
and stuff. So they'll have like you'll see like a spiral of metal stuck in it. And if you wipe your face with it, you'll cut yourself up.
Oh yeah.
You gotta
The
be
rags-
careful.
The rags we have at work are like that.
Oh yeah.
They're
Like-
full of metal chips. You can't, and those rags will not suck up water.
No, they're like
They are
anti-water.
Well, yeah, you call
they are
them
hydrophobic.
We call them water pushers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's a good reason for that. They're soaked in kerosene. They're cleaned in kerosene, so they're left with like an oiliness to them. It does not clean up water, but it cleans up oil really
Yeah,
well.
they do fine on oil and
They'll soak oil right up.
The coolants that we have, they do okay at pushing the coolants around a little bit. They don't do great on the coolants, but
Yeah, because coolants are more water
you,
based.
you just get more rags.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
So yeah, what else we got to add there?
Well, I was going to say, do you want to get into the concept of starting to work on bikes?
Yeah. So obviously, I started cars. You started cars. I want to say, Travis, you kind of started with like everything. You're like
Lawnmowers.
you're like the guy that deals on Craigslist.
Yeah.
That's what you are, or at least what you were back then. No one does Craigslist anymore. I guess it's all Facebook
I was
Marketplace
I was
now.
a Craigslist fiend back in the day. I scoured Craigslist all day, every day for every random, whatever, cool looking thing that was busted that I could buy.
See, I didn't get into bikes until I was in my early 20s. I had a friend and neighbor that got into riding pit bikes, which are basically little kids' dirt bikes that are modified for adults to ride.
That look like a shit ton of fun.
They're very fun. So he's riding around on a little Honda 50 that he has like big tall handlebars and a tall seat on. And he keeps trying to coax me. He's like, "Hey, you got to get one of these. They're so much fun." And I was like, okay, like I'd always wanted to ride motorcycles when I was younger, but I never had the opportunity. And in my early 20s, I was working. I had, paychecks coming in, so I could finally afford to buy a toy. And I was like, all right, well, I'll go out and buy one of these things. So I found a kid's dirt bike on Craigslist. It didn't run. And I'm like, well, I'm a mechanic. I can make it run. So I bought it, brought
Famous
it home.
last words.
No, it was easy. I got it running.
Okay.
It was carburetor clean, and then I had to go through it and put tires on it and stuff like that. Simple stuff, just because it had been neglected so much. So I went through it and everything, and got it all running. Everything was great. And I rode that for a few months, and I had a ball on it. I was like, this is so much fun. So I was like, well, I kind of want a bigger bike. And the one that I bought didn't have a clutch. It was only a 3-speed, a semi-auto 3-speed. So I wanted one that had a clutch, and I bought a bigger kid's bike that had a clutch and a 5-speed. And that was a lot of fun. So then I was like, well, I guess I could do a big dirt bike, like an actual full-size adult dirt bike. And I bought Brandon, my roommate at the time, got his first because we got into kids' dirt bikes at the same time. He got his full-size adult dirt bike first, which was a Honda CR125. And I rode it, and I was like, dude, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. So then I bought a Suzuki RM125 that was a basket case. It was in a million pieces and needed an engine and stuff. But again, I was like, well, I'm a mechanic. I can make that work. And I bought an engine for it, but the engine I bought was off of eBay. I got scammed. It was smoked. So basically, I scrapped that whole bike because it just wasn't worth sinking that much more money into. And instead, I just went out and bought a good running bike. Back then, I was able to get a good running bike for $900. And I wasn't going to fix the non-running bike for less for that kind of money. So I was like, I'll just buy this good running one. I still had to do some work to it, but it was a nice bike overall. Rode that for definitely a year. I think about 2 years before upgrading. But yeah, like when I first got into bikes, I had to do some work on them. Luckily, since I've been working on things professionally, and I wasn't intimidated by it. It just no big deal. Just buy the thing, fix it up, make it work, and then go out and have some fun. So that's one thing that being able to work on stuff gives you access to that not everybody has access to. A lot of other folks would have to buy like a new one that they'd have to spend thousands of dollars on. Instead, I can buy one that's in less, not as in good condition, maybe not tip top shape, but I just go through it and make sure that it's all cool. And a lot of times the previous owners don't necessarily take great care of their things, which means you can negotiate the price down. And then when you get it home, you can just go through it and just make sure everything's assembled correctly. And then it's fine, and you have a great thing that you saved some money on, and it'll last you a long time. Has been my experience with most things anyways. Also, what's nice is when you're adept at fixing things, you know what to look for. So when you go to look at used items, you already know what you're getting into. You're like, you can recognize things like, oh, hey, that's broken. That's going to cost me whatever, $200 to fix. So now I just got to negotiate with the guy and get the price $200 less. And that'll equal out in the end. So you can do things like that, and you can do it on the spot, and you can recognize whether it's a good buy or not. Instead of feeling like you're getting screwed or being worried about it, it's nice being able to just have the ability to check it out yourself.
Well, you have access to like the $800 car that, quote, won't start. And if you know the car and what generally is wrong with it, you can go and say, okay, I know exactly why this won't start. So I know exactly how much it's going to cost me to fix it. And then you can get a whole car for $800.
Well,
spend $200 in an afternoon. It's great.
Like my story with the kid's dirt bike. When I got my first one, that one didn't run. Just needed carburetor gone through. And then the second one I bought didn't run, and that was the kid's bike with a clutch and a 5-speed. It was a Honda XR100. It didn't run, but when I was checking it out, the main thing that was important to me is I pulled the Kickstarter out and I kicked through the Kickstarter. I did it slowly at first because I wanted to make sure there wasn't any it wasn't just going to jam stopped in the engine, because that's not a good thing. So I did it real slowly first, and then I kicked a few times and I felt that the engine had compression. And when I felt that, I was like, oh, we're off to the races. That means that this thing probably just has a dirty carburetor or something. That's an easy fix. It ended up not being that. It ended up the flywheel was 180 degrees out because the keyway had sheared off. But I mean, I'm a mechanic. I can fix stuff. I pulled the flywheel. I ground out the spot where the keyway was and repaired all that. Got a new piece of key stock and I shaped it into the correct shape. And then I threw that all back in, threw the flywheel back on, and it fired right up. It was super easy to fix. It only took me probably an hour or so to fix it. And I bought the bike for like, I think it's been a long time, but let's just say like I bought it for like $250 when if it were in running condition, I would have had to pay $1,000 for it. So $250 in an hour of my time and I had the thing running. And now it's a bike that's technically I could have turned around and sold for $1,000, but instead I kept it and rode it for however long I had it, for a year or whatever, and had a blast on it. It was super fun. And I ended up selling it anyways for probably $1,000. But I'd put new tires on it. I put new handlebars on it. I did all kinds of stuff to it. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits like that. You can really have access to things that you wouldn't otherwise have access to simply because financially speaking, you couldn't buy a good viable one because that's too expensive. But if you know how to fix one that, isn't in tip-top shape, then you can get away with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it also enables you to make modifications or changes that wouldn't necessarily be approved in certain circumstances. So you can, if you want to have a fancy race exhaust or something like that, that's not something you really can go just anywhere and have them put on. Some places won't put that kind of stuff on for the street because it's not legal. And so you can kind of
Breaking the law, are you?
curtail some rules a little bit because it's for track only and you're definitely only using it for track.
Oh,
And,
are you now?
Of course.
Tell us more.
Exactly.
Closed course only.
Closed course of the West Side.
Exactly. The whole place is a racetrack full of potholes.
So I want to get on to talking about specifically about tools and like,
We know you like tools.
oh God,
We know you have too many tools.
I joke around about like, if some thief were to come in here and steal a bunch of my bikes and stuff, I mean, I'd be sad about it, but ultimately like that stuff's replaceable. My tools, however, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. That stuff is blood, sweat, tears. It's been my survival. It's been my whole entire life. And it's taken me 20 some years to build my tool collection.
We'll put a picture of your tool collection in this for everybody to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of it. But
We know.
I
yeah,
don't think the photo will be big enough.
Yeah, it might need to be a montage of photos.
it's ridiculous. I have more money in tools than some people have in their house, and it's just it's.
But you were a professional, so like you
Yeah.
kind of needed that to do your job.
Well, need and want are two different
you
things.
needed a certain
but-
level of that, and then over the rest of the time, it was more want.
But what I wanted to get into talking about with tools is like, on other YouTube videos, especially on like all these like custom bike build videos and stuff, you're going to see some tools on there that I don't like. I don't own a CNC lathe. I don't own like that kind of equipment. That kind of equipment's like,
I think you need one.
oh, I'd love to have it, but I don't have 480 volt and 3-phase in my shop, and I don't have $1 million to stick in the thing.
When you need a car, you
Well,
need the
to work
size of
harder.
a car's space to put it in too.
Yeah, and that's another thing is a CNC lathe weighs like 5,000 pounds, and you got to figure out how to get that inside your shop.
Well,
I don't have a forklift.
I can get you a forklift. I can get you any type of forklift that you want. You want an 85 tonner? You got it.
But like, back when I was 16, 17, 18 years old and I was first starting out in this, I had the blow molded case with 233 piece Craftsman tool set, and I kind of worked up from there. And the reason bought the 1/2-inch drive Stanley sockets with the Stanley breaker bar was when I was first starting out on cars. The one of the things you have to do most often is remove the wheels. Like to work on anything on a car, you're usually removing the wheels. So I bought a 1/2-inch drive set so I could remove lug nuts and wheels from cars. Since that was something I did very often. And then I grew my tools from there. I got the blow molded case, 200, whatever it was. It wasn't a 233 piece set. It might have been a 181 piece set, whatever it was. It doesn't matter. But I got that case and started doing like, okay, now I need to remove the intake from this car. So whatever, I got the, 1/4-inch drive tools to do that. Do you guys experience something similar when you guys first started buying your tools?
Well, I've always been working in 3/8 for wheel nuts.
Wrong.
I know I'm wrong, but I don't want to be right. So, and I remember more recently I went to the Harbor Freight and they had a free tool with purchase. And one of the choices was a 1/2-inch torque wrench. I just used that 1/2-inch torque wrench for the axle nut on my BMW.
There you go.
Because I'm like, well, this goes to 125 Newton meters. Let's use it. But I would say that it kind of like evolved through like an as needed basis.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, you need a ball joint separator.
Yeah, you don't have
a
to buy
3/8 breaker bar.
You don't have to buy a shop's worth of tools up front before you start working on stuff. Like just buy the couple of tools you need for that specific job. And then when you do the next job, buy the next tools you need
Like
for
I
that
need
job.
the tower of extensions and U joints to, reach the place where you're technically not supposed to take it from the top, but you did because the instructions on the internet are wrong.
Yeah, that's another thing that
Then you just have all that stuff for later.
yeah, you definitely got to watch that. The instructions on how to take something apart aren't set in stone. You don't have to do exactly what they tell you to do, as long as you're not damaging or destroying something to get it apart. I mean, they'll tell you, oh, you want to do this or that, or you need to do a starter or something. You got to remove the transmission. It's like, well, I'm not fucking removing the transmission. They can kiss my butt on that. Like, I'm going to find a way to do it without doing
Yeah.
that.
So like what I like to do is I either have I have some shop manuals that are an actual book, or I have the digital shop manual for whatever I have. And I like to review that and see how detailed or in depth it is. And if it doesn't seem like it's too terrible, sure, I'll just do it that way. But if it seems like it's excessively long or requires special tools that I don't have, that's when we open up this thing called the internet.
So, you bring that kind of stuff up. As a professional mechanic, it's very common for a brand new vehicle that just came out, I remember I did, I've done many brand new fresh vehicles, like a 2006 Kia, what was that thing called? Kia Optima. It was a 2006 Kia Optima. It was the first vehicle in the United States introduced from Kia and Hyundai that had the Theta 2 engine in it. And we just unloaded these things off the truck. It was over at the detailer's booth, and the detailer was doing his normal detail thing, except he was an idiot. He was a young kid. He sprayed the pressure washer directly into the intake of the car while it was running.
Oops.
And just exploded the engine. Brand new car just came out. Brand new engine just came out. When brand new cars come out, especially at Kia and Hyundai, they were notorious for this. There was no service manual. It didn't
never.
exist yet. It takes like 6 months for them to get a service manual out, because the logic to it is,
And there's no service parts.
yeah, the logic to it is, well, they're not going to need that for a while.
Correct.
Because, it's a brand new car. It shouldn't need fixed. Well, stuff happens and it does need fixed. So I had to replace the engine on this Optima with no service manual on a car that literally no one has ever done before. We had to order the engine from Korea because there were no new engines in the United States. So it had to come direct from the manufacturing plant. They had to pull it off of the assembly line to get me an engine. So what do you do in that circumstance when you don't have access to information what it's like for a professional mechanic is like I would get in a car. Another case was a 2015 Hyundai Genesis, all-wheel drive with a V6.
A Genesis?
No, a Hyundai Genesis before they became Genesis. In the 2015 was a brand new design. The engine wasn't necessarily a brand new design. It was the Lambda V6, but it was in a different layout it had never been in before, and it was on an all-wheel drive platform, which it had never had before, at least in a longitudinally mounted sense. They'd had all-wheel drive platforms on a transverse mounted, but never on a longitudinally mounted. So here I am having to do a starter on it. You talk about a starter. And this thing, you're supposed to remove the engine to do the starter. So I figured out, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So I unbolted the subframe and slightly dropped it, and I was able to snake it out. But what you do is you get this new design, this new car, or just something you've never worked on before, and you just study it. You look at it and you try imagining ways of disassembling it.
Yes.
And then you just start attacking it. You just start going at it, but you do it methodically. You don't just like spin bolts out and throw them. You do it in a nice organized fashion and take your time, and you pay attention to as things come apart. And a lot of people have it backwards. When you first start on stuff, you think the teardown is the quick part and the putting it back together is the long part. It's opposite when you're a professional. When you're a professional, the teardown is the long part because you're figuring it out and you're being meticulous as you go. And then when you go to assemble it back together, well, you know exactly how it goes back together. So just boom, it's back together. That's how it was when I just did the camshaft in my scooter. I spent about 3 hours doing it. I bet you 2.5 hours was me removing the engine, disassembling the engine, removing the camshaft, installing the new camshaft, and then timing the engine. Once I got to that point, 30 minutes I had it back in and running. And that's typically how projects go when you've done it for many, many years. The teardown is the longest part, and then the reassembly is actually shorter, strangely enough. But we were talking about tools when you first start out. You had the blow molded case. You had access to like professional tools. Your dad had done it, but as you grew older and you got moved out of the house and moved into your own place, what did you do at that point in time?
I had the blow molded case, the Craftsman set, and honestly, when I moved out and I was on my own, at that point I had a car that was reasonably reliable. Ironically, it was my RX-8.
Very reliable.
A rotary engine that's reliable.
I never had any problems out of that car.
You owned it for like a year.
No, I had that car for like 3 years.
Was this before or after the 90s BMW?
After.
After.
Yes.
You decided you were done with the punishment.
Yeah. I had two 90s BMWs, and then I had a S10 Blazer was my first car, and then sold the S10 Blazer and got the RX-8, and then I had the red car still, the red BMW.
The convertible?
Yeah, I traded that for my first motorcycle. And it was all downhill from there. But I had the blow molded case originally, and I didn't do a whole lot of car work when I moved to the house I lived in. After that, I lived there with a couple buddies, just kind of bacheloring it up, and I had a reasonably reliable car. I had my motorcycle. I ended up picking up a truck for the winter. But I never had to do a whole lot of maintenance to those. So it was just like basic stuff, oil change, batteries, simple, tire stuff, simple stuff. So the blow molded case worked fine. There was plenty enough tools with that. And then when I moved to my current house, that's when I started really expanding my tool collection, and got my big toolbox, which is now over full, and I need more space. I don't have enough space. And
Should have bought a bigger one.
Well, that's what always happens.
Yeah. Well, that was the biggest one they made at the time. Milwaukee only made like 3 toolboxes for a short period of time, but just kind of kept buying here and there just to get, what I needed. I know I've bought a couple sets of tools off of you before, some stuff that you were trying to get rid of so you could buy some different things. And since then, I've bought a lot of different stuff. I buy plenty of Harbor Freight stuff.
I'm a Harbor Freight addict.
Plenty of...
Well, I am too.
Yeah. Plenty of Gear Wrench. I really like the Gear Wrench stuff. They've made a couple of...
Is that Amazon store brand?
No.
No.
Gear Wrench is actually owned by Apex Tools,
Yeah.
which is a conglomerate that owns a bunch of different companies. And Gear Wrench, they are Chinese made, but they're like really good quality for a very fair price.
Yeah, like $30 for like a ratchet or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's very, very fair for a tool that I would consider just under professional grade. Professional grade is going to be like Snap-on, Mac, Matco. There's a few other lines that are pretty professional grade, like S&K. Craftsman's not professional grade,
No, they're just lifetime warranty.
and lifetime warranty. Like all of them.
Well, and the Gear Wrench stuff, it's all lifetime
Yeah,
warranty as
everything's-
well.
Yeah,
So
If you ever hear somebody bragging about a lifetime warranty on
There are
a
a
tool,
lot of companies that do that now.
like
Whereas
pretty much every
much
like
all of
Harbor
them.
Freight's most of the stuff in Harbor Freight, if it's a
even Pittsburgh
if
is
it's a hand
lifetime
tool,
warranty.
it's lifetime
Yeah.
warranty. The difference in tools between, why would I spend a rail of 3/8 drive shallow sockets in metric from Snap-on for better or for worse, it's about $300 for just a rail of sockets. That'll be from size, I think size 8 to size 19 in shallow drive. That's it. That's all you're getting. You're getting those sockets, whatever. There's 11 sockets. It's like $300. Why would you buy that if you can get the exact same socket rail? They're all chrome and everything from Harbor Freight. Get the Pittsburgh line for like $8. Why would I pay $300? Well, the reason that the professionals buy those tools is because, yes, both are lifetime warranted. So if they break, those companies will replace them. But the Snap-ons don't break or don't break as often.
the lifetime is longer.
The lifetime is much, much longer. I
the
have
tolerances are better as well.
Oh, absolutely. Like, so you won't slip on bolts. Like, you won't round out bolts nearly as bad as you do with the
Yep.
cheaper stuff, the lower grade stuff.
There's certain tools. There's a couple of like tool types that you really have to spend money on to get something that's really good and worth it.
And the thing is, though, for most of the folks out there that aren't professional, which is most folks,
Yeah.
I don't recommend Snap-on. Don't go buy Snap-on. Like, you're silly to buy Snap-on if you're not doing it professionally. Like, unless you just got money to burn, then okay, whatever. But Snap-on is a fantastic tool. I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, oh, my Harbor Freight or my Gear Wrench or whatever brand is just as good as Snap-on. It just isn't. Like, it flat out isn't. It can be proven. The Snap-on is a great, great tool for the most part. I'm speaking generally here, not specifically towards any one certain type of tool that Snap-on makes, but just generally across their whole line. They're a
Well,
great tool.
let me verify with the Project Farm Man. We'll test that.
He did do a ratchet comparison video.
And here's the thing, though, about his ratchet comparison video. I'm sure the Snap-on did really well in the comparison. I'm sure it wasn't the lowest grade one,
I'm pretty sure it performed the best overall,
but it was.
but it was also 10 times the
Yeah,
price.
but
of
that's the
every
thing. It's
other
like, yeah,
ratchet.
it's 10 times the price. I have a Snap-on 3/8 drive flex head ratchet. It's comfort grip that I bought, I think, around the year 2007. And I bought it used from the Snap-on man. The Snap-on man just happened to have it used, and he walked inside my shop and he goes, "Hey, you want to buy this thing?" And I was like,
Yes.
"How much?" And he's like, $50. Normally a Snap-on ratchet's $200. So for $50, I was like, "Yep, I'm taking that." So
What do you do? Take one in on trade?
yeah, with Snap-on tools, they hold residual value. You can trade them in. That's like, you can't do that at Harbor Freight. You can trade your Snap-on tool in and they will give you a fair price for it. If you pay $200 for it, So a lot of times they'll give you like $100 in trade for it, and then he'll apply that $100 to the new thing you buy. I mean, yes, there's a decent amount of margin that he has in markup to be able to do that with, but at the same time, it's nice that the tools actually hold residual value. You're not doing that with any other tool brand. Like Snap-on toolboxes, they're worth the most as far as resale goes. It's not even close. Like if you buy a Snap-on toolbox, one, no one pays retail. My toolbox was $20,000 when I bought it in 2014. When I bought my toolbox, it was retail price was like $20,000 or $21,000. I paid $12,000. No one ever pays retail for these things. So I paid $12,000. I can go and sell it right now. This is 11 years later. I can sell it right now for probably about $8,000. That's about what that thing's worth. No other toolbox can you do that with. You know, if you tried to take your Milwaukee and sell it, what could you get out of it?
I don't know, probably nothing.
Probably
I don't know. I probably could get.
100 or 200.
I
or
bet you I
something?
could get half its value. I bet you I could get $300 out of it.
You think you get $300 out of it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like it's just crazy. Like, and even Max and Matco's and Cornwell, they don't hold their value nearly as much as Snap-on. But
Well, you're a Cornwell.
I got some Cornwell tools out there. I can show them to you. Cornholes, yeah,
Some cornholes.
some strap-ons and some cornholes. You know, I tell all kinds of people like, don't. Professional tools are silly if you're not doing it professionally. Don't waste your money. Instead, there's some suggestions that I have, at least from a professional standpoint, that you could buy that gives you a good quality tool, and you don't have to spend a ton of money. In fact, you can spend just a little bit more than like the blow molded case stuff, and you can get much nicer stuff. I really love the Icon series at Harbor Freight. Like I really love that stuff. It is very good. There's no reason to buy anything else. If you wanted to try a different brand, Gear Wrench is awesome. Like it's really good. And then I stumbled across what's the brand of Vessel for screwdrivers, just because they still make JIC, Japanese Industrial. Or JIS, I'm sorry, Japanese Industrial Standard Tools. So Vessel's where I go for those. Basically, if you ever run across a Phillips head screw that you've stripped,
Because it's probably a JIS.
or just because Phillips head they just strip, try a JIS screwdriver in it. You'll be amazed at how well it grips. They are awesome. So
That's
Still
funny.
need to buy some of those.
you can get a Vessel number 2 JIS screwdriver for like $10 on Amazon.
Yeah, it's about the only one you really need.
That's the one you need is the number 2
And there's
JIS.
there's two types. There's the blue handle and the silver handle. The silver handle is
impact.
a impact ratcheting screwdriver.
Yep, and I have all of it. I have the blue handle, the silver handle. I have 1s, 2s, and 3s. I have ratcheting ones. Like I love the Vessel line, and they're very affordable. They're probably the best quality JIS screwdriver, but they don't compare to like Snap-on's quality. They just are the best quality JIS I've been able to find.
Everybody that I've seen that works on bikes a lot, the Japanese stuff, because all the screws are JIS screws, they use Vessel screwdrivers. I mean, everybody I see, they have Vessel screwdrivers for JIS screws.
I've only encountered Allen keys.
You
Yeah,
don't-
that's
you don't have
common
any
too.
carburetors.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never owned anything with a carburetor in my entire life.
The Vessel's a good thing to own for carburetors.
Gosh,
for
you have
sure.
to have it for carburetors.
Yep.
There's no other way.
They're awesome.
Every time you turn a carburetor upside down, you're like, huh, yep, somebody's been into that.
Yep.
Because every
Like
screw
I don't
on the
even
thing
know
will
what a
be ripped.
carburetor is.
But like, even when you see a rounded out Phillips, if you have a JIS in your hand, you're like, oh, I'll take that off. Like they'll even get the rounded off ones. They're that good.
Yeah.
So they're incredible.
Yeah, really good.
so
That's the
I-
only screwdriver I use. Phillips, that's my go-to Phillips screwdriver.
And then, you know, the big important thing with tools, which a lot of professionals, you know, in the professional world, your tool collection is your pride, and there's a lot of ego there. So
oh, we know.
you'll see guys buy these giant toolboxes. They'll spend a fortune on this toolbox.
Gosh, sounds like somebody we
yeah.
know.
Who's done that before?
But they don't have tools to fill the thing up with. So this huge box, and it's really good looking, and they look professional as could be with their giant toolbox. and you open up the drawers and they have like 2 things in it.
Well, I mean, that's me, but I didn't spend $1,000 on my toolbox.
Exactly. So I always tell folks that are new to this game, don't worry about your toolbox. Your toolbox is not important. The tools that go inside of it are what's important. The box is just the place you hold them. So in the professional setting, because your box is at work, you need to be able to secure it and lock it up. So you want like a nice toolbox to be able to do that with. But in your own home garage, you don't need to lock it up. So you don't need this super fancy, nice toolbox. And if you do want something that's, a little nicer for organization's sake, I always, years ago, you couldn't do this because Harbor Freight's toolboxes weren't great back then. But now Harbor Freight's toolboxes are the U.S. General line is really, really good stuff. And it's very fairly priced. There's a tool cart that I love up there that's $600 normally and $500 on sale. And it is every bit as comparable to the Snap-on Master Series tool cart. It has drawers that go from, it's probably like 5 or 6 drawers tall, and then it has a flip top lid. Fantastic box. If you buy the same thing from Snap-on, it's $2,500. So
Well, it was like the one that I bought. I think it's a 52-inch box.
56.
56.
Yeah, it's 56.
And regular price was like $900, which was reasonable. And then when you get a sale, I think on Black Friday it was like $5.99. I paid like $6.50.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for $650. You are not coming close. The equivalent Snap-on, which is
It's probably like $5,000.
for yours, it's the Snap-on Master Series. It's $8,000, and that's the equivalent Snap-on. Instead, you paid $650 for what Snap-on offers for $8,000. Now, is there a difference? Yes, there absolutely is a difference.
Will I notice it?
You
No.
won't notice it. No. Snap-on has a famous ad campaign where they parked a dump truck on top of their toolbox. Completely, they used a crane to set this dump truck. I don't even know how much the thing weighed. It's 20,000, 30,000 pound dump truck on the top of their toolbox. And after they get it sitting there on top of their toolbox, they walk over, they unlock it, and they open the drawers, and they all glide smoothly. And they're showing how strong it is without deforming. Now, if you did that same thing with a Harbor Freight box, it's probably going to deform a little, and the drawers may not open.
Well, I highly doubt it's going to hold it at all.
Yeah, or it could just crush like a soda can underneath it. But that's one of the major differences is just the materials are higher quality, they're more robust, the slides are way better. Just the drawers on a Snap-on toolbox are weighted, that's super important. Weighted drawers, double and triple ball bearing slides, weight rating on the drawers is much higher. So there's a lot of differences, but for your hobbyist or folks that are just starting out, you don't need all that. That's ridiculous, and that's for when you're doing it professionally all day, every day.
When mine are green,
You got green?
absolutely. The best color.
Lime green, yeah, everything is. Even
Hell
your seat.
yes.
I went black because everything goes with black. And
Boring.
well, when you do it professionally, you have to always consider the future that you may expand your toolbox. So you don't want to buy a color that isn't going to be available, like a limited edition
what
color.
if I would get mismatch? I support that.
Ew.
I support
can't-
adversity.
I can't take you seriously as a professional.
But because I'm not.
You just come in here with a mismatched color toolbox. Get out.
I'm
Dude,
only
you wear-
Honda
You
factory
wear two different
trained.
socks too.
Huh?
You wear two different socks.
Actually, I do.
too? Oh, I can't stand that.
Because
No.
I bought, this is a very far tangent, but I buy the socks at Costco, and they come with a pack of gray socks and a pack of black socks.
you cannot mix them.
I just
you
pick
can't-
the
you can't
You
socks.
just pick 'em up. Oh my
I just
God,
pick
you
'em up.
heathen.
So generally, I'm probably next time we go out riding, we'll see, because that's one of the few times I do wear socks.
You're probably wearing two lefts, aren't you?
And yes, I wear ankle socks in my full length boots.
Oh
Thank
my
you.
God.
I'm a true millennial. But yes, we'll verify next time, but they're probably going to be two different colors. Actually, I think I have my gym shoes out in my car. I'll check.
Well, going back to the point of professionals with their giant toolboxes,
And mismatched socks.
I did not buy my Snap-on toolbox until I had been working on things professionally for like 10 years. Before that, I had Harbor Freight didn't exist back then, wasn't a thing.
It's unfortunate for you.
I know. So I'd mail ordered this toolbox. It was called International Toolbox. It was the company who made it. It was a 56-inch box like what you have. It was pretty much identical to what you have, 56-inch wide, like a 24-inch depth, and however tall they are, 40 some odd inches tall. And it was a fine box. It did hold my tools, and I never had much to complain about it. I bought that for $900 shipped to my door, and I lived out of that thing 10
That was
years.
a lot of money back then.
Oh yeah, and I lived out of that thing for 10 years and worked out of it professionally. And then when I outgrew it, I bought a Matco tool cart, and then I had to upgrade my Matco tool cart to another Matco tool cart that had more drawers. And then I bought a little Craftsman top box to set on top of my International Toolbox, just to like that. All that really did was hold like my pens and paperwork and stuff like that. Just give me some organization. Then finally, like, I had so many tools that I couldn't fit them into my toolboxes at work. So instead, I kept them in my car, and I would truck them back and forth to work every day. Because I didn't know if I would need them that day or not, so I just kept them with me. And then finally, I bit the bullet and bought a Snap-on toolbox, like a real deal big badass toolbox, and one that's modular, so it's expandable. That way, I was like, this is the last toolbox I'm ever gonna have to buy. Worst case scenario, I can expand it. So I can make it longer. I can make it taller. I can do all that. Like, I can do. You can just keep bolting
Well, I
on
think
sections
you've
of it.
maxed it out at this point.
I'm pretty close. I'm pretty close to maxed out with the one I have. I haven't. To expand it still costs a lot, and since I'm no longer doing it professionally, I don't want to spend that kind of money. Like, what I would like to get is a side cab, and a side cab's going to cost me about $8,000, and I don't want to spend $8,000 on a
It's a
side cab.
motorcycle.
Yeah, that's a whole motorcycle, so no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. What is your advice towards somebody that's first getting into this? Like, how do they go about with their tools?
How do they go about being a tool? Tell us.
Oh man, well, I would probably, unless you have a specific preference or you've been eyeballing something specific, I think you can't go wrong with just popping down to Hobo Freight and picking out one of everything that you think you need.
I'm a proud Inside Track member, just to put that out there.
I am too, actually. I have a thing for that. But
So you're saying that I shouldn't renew mine, and I should just give them your phone number next time I go there?
why not? That's what I got like 3 other people that do that, so
He gets the rewards points, so he don't care.
I don't pay for it.
There are
One of-
reward points
One
that
of my
come
other
with
friends
it?
pays for
I
it.
have no idea.
I don't think there are. I don't think so.
I would just get one of their toolboxes. If I had to start over, and I had to pick, what I was going to get, I would get one of their toolboxes just because I know where to go to get it, and that it's a decent quality one. They'll do warranty on it, anything like that.
Well, and if you don't own a truck, you have to have a friend that owns a truck to help you get it.
Yeah, but that's going to be for a lot of those kinds of things.
I would say worst case scenario, if you're new to the game and you don't have any friends for whatever reason, just go rent a U-Haul truck. They're like $20
True.
to rent,
Yeah.
and you can get it home,
Yeah, you could rent a U-Haul pickup truck and get
And
it.
then do an autocross the next day.
and then do an
Yeah.
autocross the next day. Because hey, that's just another $20.
You could leave the toolbox and the tools in the truck. That way you can work on it if you have to. At the
Well, and
autocross
also you'd
event.
have some more weight over the rear axle.
There you go.
His plan's just working out.
So I would pick out, some sockets and some pliers and things like that. I like the blow molded cases because you get a little bit of an array of everything, but there's inevitably always going to be missing certain things that you want. And so you
Absolutely.
can always expand on that. But I think sometimes, especially starting out, it might be cheaper if you laser focus on a couple of the things that you need right away. Like, you're going to need a 3/8 socket set.
There's a
You're
socket
going to need
set,
a ratchet. You're going to need
wrenches,
a screwdriver set.
Wrenches.
screwdrivers, hammers.
Yeah, some basic combination wrenches. You get a regular hammer, a ball peen hammer or something like that.
Yeah, don't get a claw hammer. We're not building houses here.
What's a claw hammer?
It's got
Really?
the fork on the back.
For picking out nails with?
All hammers have that.
No.
Not real ones.
There's so many different types of hammers.
I have such a beautiful hammer. I'll have to
There's-
show you next time you're
There's
here.
engineer's hammer. There's ball peen hammer.
Yeah.
There's
It's a
dead
nice
blow hammer. There's a
leather-handled 20-ounce framing hammer.
A piston hammer. There's a specific hammer
Yep.
for that. There's so many different hammers, but the most generic hammer you need is the 32-ounce ball peen hammer. Just
Yep.
buy that
32
one.
ounce? That's pretty aggressive.
32-ounce ball peen hammer. That's the one you need as a, starting out new mechanic. Get that one.
I think I have a 20-ounce framing hammer because, you need the fork.
Yep.
I think I have a dead blow of some sort.
Yeah, dead blows are nice.
a rubber dead blow, like
Yeah.
a sand-filled one, or
No, it's just a rubber one that I used it when I retiled my condo.
Is it a mallet or is it a dead blow?
I think it's a mat. I don't know.
Rubber's
is
a
it
mallet.
black, like black rubber?
Yes.
And then,
Yeah, it's a mallet.
that's a mallet. You need a dead blow hammer.
And I used that to just whack all the freaking separators out of the tile.
yeah, you
It was
need to get an actual dead
the
blow.
best. The
That'll-
most satisfying activity I've ever done with a
Yeah,
hammer.
that thing will change your life.
A shot-filled dead blow hammer is like, that's the way. And the ones that are all plastic, because then you can strike even machined finishes, and it won't gall them up. It won't hurt them. So it's a really nice tool to have. But we're kind of getting further in the weeds here. The main thing is just start with a simple one, and then you can expand, and you can have all these nice hammers we're talking about. You can have a crazy crap load of hammers. I have an entire drawer that is just hammers, and the reason is yes, you can do everything with a 32-ounce ball peen, but it's kind of like trying to perform surgery with a golf club. It's not necessarily the right tool for the job, but it'll open somebody up.
Hell
And
yeah.
That's kind of what a 32-ounce ball peen is. The reason I say 32-ounce instead of a smaller one, I have a
Because you want to hit people hard.
well, I have like an 8-ounce ball peen that I love. I love my little, I call it my little dink dink, and because that's what it's for. It's for really tight spaces where you can't get a big swing, or if you're doing little light delicate work where you just need taps. It works phenomenal for that, and the head of it is so tiny you can get it into little tiny places. So it's a great tool. But if you need to knock a rotor off of a car, you need a 32-ounce ball peen. You can't do it with an 8-ounce ball peen.
You need a bigger one than that.
So-
But the 32 at least is a good all-arounder.
Yeah, it's just a good all-arounder for first starting out. And like you guys were saying, the blow molded case stuff, I have one. I'm a professional. I don't use it often, but man, is it awesome. If I, say my shop is detached from my house, and say I have to work on my water heater in my house. Well, I can't bring my Snap-on toolbox inside the house because
Theoretically, you could.
I can't. It doesn't fit through the door.
Well, it rolls to the door.
But I still don't want to walk back and forth between my water heater and the door. So instead, I just grab my little blow molded case and bring it inside, and then I have most of the tools that I'm going to need.
Excuses are bridges to nowhere.
I didn't give an excuse. I gave a solution.
Debatable.
I'm not bringing my Snap-on toolbox inside the house, Nick.
Yeah, you gonna bring your toolbox in your house?
Well, I have steps.
Oh hell! Oh, excuses, huh?
Where's that bridge to nowhere going?
I would have absolutely wrapped my BMW inside of my house if it was easy to get it in there.
Yeah, why don't you just park them in the living room?
I think I need to build a ramp.
There you go. See, there you go. Spring project.
My
Build a ramp to your
my
living room.
stairs in the backyard are crumbling away, so I might as well just put a ramp in there too.
Yeah, just do an elevator while you're at it.
You ever do any sweet jumps off that ramp?
I want to. But I'm wheelie challenged.
Oh, Jesus.
That's this summer's goal.
Wheelies?
Yes.
Let's do it. I got bikes. Let's do it.
Oh yeah.
What would you guys say as far as Any other thing you'd like to add is for somebody that's new to this, looking at like first getting into doing projects? Is there any like other advice that you'd give them?
Well, if we want to talk about getting into working on bikes, I feel very equipped to talk about the subject.
Yeah.
So, I tinkered around on cars forever, got a bike. What I had to do right after I bought the bike was, it was 13 years old at the time. So I wanted to change all the fluids.
The bike was 13 years old.
Yes.
He could have been 13 too.
I could have
mean.
been as well, you never know. But I wanted to change all the fluids. When I bought it, it was lowered, so I wanted to unlower it. And then shortly after, I got new tires. So the things that I needed were I had to get the stands to lift it off the ground, which my rear stand, I believe, is a Harbor Freight flavor. And then I have a headlift stand from the Amazons. Not super fancy. They work. So you really need those type of stands to work on bikes. For the most part, all of the tools that I had to begin with worked fine. I only had to buy things for axle nuts, front, and then
Like big sockets. For the
big
axle nut.
sockets. But other than that, bikes are very accessible. And I would say that I remember when I wanted to change the coolant, it was like you had to take off all the fairings. And that to me was very intimidating because it was like, oh, I have to take the whole thing apart. And you look at the bike after you take everything off of it and you think, wow, like, am I going to be able to put this back together? But you can. Like, it's not unreasonable. It sounds like a lot. It seems like a lot, but you can do it. And you don't really need any specialized tools to do it other than, I would say, the lifting devices.
Yeah, having a way to lift the bike off the ground is pretty key. And if you make that investment after you buy the bike, the ability to lift it off the ground, whatever that means there's a few different ways to go about it. There's like paddock stands. There is like under engine lifts. There's jack stands. I mean, there's a few different ways to go about it, but having the means to lift the bike up is I'd say it's a necessity.
Yeah,
for working
rear
on
stand
bikes.
at a minimum. You need that to
Yep.
do even your chain maintenance.
Yep. And well, it's not absolutely 100% necessary to do chain maintenance, but God, does it make it so much easier. And it's a reasonably low investment if you want really, really nice stands, very high end
No,
stands.
I think I paid $30 or $40 for mine.
30 or 40 is going to get you entry level. About 200 is going to get you for the very nice stuff. So it's not terrible what you have to invest to do that. And the other thing to consider is you buy, let's say you buy, like my favorite brand is Pitbull. Let's say you buy 2 of those, a front and a rear, and you buy them used off of Craigslist, off of Marketplace for $100 a piece. You paid $200 used. It's totally possible. I've bought many Pitbull stands used. I have a collection of Pitbull stands.
A graveyard.
But when you go to get tires for your bike, if you take the whole bike, if you ride it to the mechanic and you have the mechanic remove the wheels from the bike, install new tires, and then reinstall the wheels, he'll charge you anywhere from like 70 to like $100 a wheel to do that work. If you have stands to do it yourself and you put the bike up in the air and you take the wheels off yourself and then you take those wheels in your car up to, or if you use an Uber or whatever you have to do to get them over to the mechanic shop, you just take the loose wheels over there and you hand him the loose wheels. He'll most likely charge you way less.
It's about half.
If not even less than that. Like, I don't know what Monger was charging now, but he was charging only $25 a tire.
I think
it's
35
more.
was the last time
Yeah,
I paid.
35.
35 a tire. Still way less than 100 a tire. So, just on that alone, you do one tire change and you dang near got your money's worth. But you're going to be doing multiple tire changes over the lifetime of that bike. Plus, you can do it on your buddies' bikes. They can all come over and you can lift their bikes in the air and you can take the wheels off and run them down to the mechanic shop, have them swap some tires on for you. And then you can expand the jobs you do from there, whether you're doing oil changes or whatnot. You can do
Or you
just
can
so
have
much.
a friend that has a Rabiconda.
Yeah, or you can have a friend with a Rabbit Honda. Yeah, so, getting into doing this mechanic type stuff, working on your own stuff, it's just extremely valuable, and it's going to allow you access. So, say you're not one of those rich folks who can just afford everything, like most of us are. We're not rich, and we do what we can to get by. This is one of those things that this is doing what you can to get by. You learn how to do these tasks, and then all of a sudden you can start affording other things because you're not paying some professional guy to charge you an arm and a leg to fix your stuff.
Yeah, like I couldn't afford my collection of cars and motorcycles if I didn't work on it myself.
And I'm saying this as a professional who literally relies on people bringing me stuff to fix. that I'm kind of like taking food out of my own mouth here, but yeah, like that's how I afford things. I can't afford to pay somebody to fix my stuff.
No.
I just have to learn how to do it.
Yep, I wouldn't be able to have as many things as I have without it.
Oh, I'll tell you another great resource, and people will make fun of this, Google Mechanics or YouTube Mechanics. Dude, as a professional, I've watched over the years all the guys I work next to pulling out their cell phones, looking up YouTube videos.
Don't it make you mad, though, a little bit? Because it's like, back in my day, I had to earn that knowledge by doing it myself.
Not at all, because I come from the time when forums were huge. So those were a huge resource where dudes would, I don't even know why we used to do this, but we used to write up like whole how-tos, like multiple page how-tos with like documented photos, and back in the forums days, explaining exactly how to do a certain task on a certain thing. And nowadays,
so I could go onto the Sobnet and pull that and do it on my own car.
And then now that's sort of shifted away from the forums, and now it's on YouTube, and instead of in print form, it's a video now, but it's still the same, same tool. So yeah, don't be afraid to look the stuff up. The only thing I would say is compare multiple sources.
Yes.
Because you don't know the source you're getting it from, whether it's kind of a, backyard Bob that is going to cause you to screw up your vehicle. So look at a few sources, and if they all say similar things, then you know you're on the right track.
And do your risk analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. Like risk analysis, you mean the cost.
How sketchy does it look?
Well, that and cost of paying a professional to do it versus cost of if you do it yourself and you screw it up.
Oh, and like I've tried to change the starter on my convertible, and like I looked at it, I attempted it for about an hour, and I said, no, I'm taking that to the shop. I took it to the shop. Book value, I think, was like an hour and a half. I waited for them to do it. I waited 6 hours, and they only charged me for an hour and a half. So I said, well, I guess it's a good thing that I decided to cut my losses, because even the professional couldn't even do it in what the book was.
Yeah, and sometimes as a professional, it's a fine line that you walk. Like book time on 2.7 Kia Mu engines that came in like Optima V6s and Sportage V6s and a few other cars. That 2.7, the spark plugs on it called for 2 hours. I can do them in about 12 minutes. And some customers would get pissed about that, because they're paying me for 2 hours. And I'm like, you're not paying me for the time, you're paying me for the experience. I can do them in 12 minutes, not because I'm taking shortcuts, because I'm that good at doing this particular job. I've done 1 million of them. And you know that I'm doing it right. If you took this over to somebody that's never seen this engine before, yeah, they would take 2 hours or more. But because I know it so well. So that, that sort of thing happens. But then there's been other times where jobs, like you say, like it bites me in the butt.
Yeah.
The book time calls for an hour and a half and it takes 6. And then I just got to eat that time, and that sucks. But that's life of being a professional mechanic. You just have to learn to work within your
You win
allotted
some
time.
and you lose some.
And hopefully you're winning more than you're losing.
Yes.
Yep.
Because
Good
if
old
not,
Google.
you should probably consider a different career.
Definitely. And I've seen that happen too.
Yep. So it's good to just use Google as an advantage for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tool to use, and I don't diss on anyone who
Yep.
pulls up the YouTube to try to figure out how to fix something. It's a great resource. Use it.
Yep. I do it all the time for stuff at home. If it's something that I'm unfamiliar with, it's funky, yeah, pull up Google, see if there's even anything out there that might help take some shape,
Yeah.
some time off of me trying to figure it out.
Clarify some things so you're not guessing, and
Yep.
and that's not only going to save you time, it's going to save you money, and I mean there's just all sorts of advantages. So we're in the information age. Use the information.
Yep. It's all out there on the interwebs.
Absolutely.
And the interwebs is always right.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Yes.
Yeah. So Hobo Freight tools and the interwebs will get you real far.
Hobo
won't it?
Freight Tools, the interwebs, and know somebody that knows
And-
more than you.
And I guess the biggest takeaway that I would like to put out there is you
Don't
don't
buy Snap-on tools unless you're a professional.
No, it's you're not going to have an entire professional's wealth of knowledge within a first couple days of doing this. It's 20 years of doing it. So don't worry if you don't have every answer on day one.